Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
David's hand trembled as he pushed the bedroom door open, the faint scent of cologne and betrayal hanging in the air. The sight of Lauren, his wife of 8 years, sprawled on their bed with a stranger, froze him in place. The man turned, smug and unbothered, while Lauren's voice cracked with desperation. "David! It's not what it looks like!" His heart pounded, torn between roaring anger and suffocating sorrow. Without a word, he turned, her sobs echoing behind him as he grabbed his keys. Somewhere in his chest, heartbreak shifted to something darker. This wasn't over far from it. Before we dive into the full story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you're enjoying this tale, don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. Chapter 1. A hushed excitement coursed through David as he parked his dusty sedan outside the modest suburban house he shared with Lauren. It was nearly 8 at night, and he'd spent the entire day wrestling with an intractable software bug at his company's HQ. Normally, he'd come home dead tired and simply throw together a quick microwave meal, but not tonight. Tonight, he'd left the office a bit early, heart pounding with an eager plan. Surprise Lauren with a home-cooked dinner, complete with candles and wine. Some small, romantic gesture to re-spark that closeness they used to share. He stepped out of the car, smoothed down his slightly rumpled shirt, and grabbed a grocery bag of fresh ingredients: pasta, tomatoes, a selection of herbs, plus a bottle of decent red wine. The warm Florida air blanketed him in a humid embrace, but he felt a buoyant energy. "She's going to be thrilled," he thought. "Been ages since I last cooked anything beyond scrambled eggs." His footsteps across the driveway felt lighter than usual, almost a skip. When David unlocked the front door, the interior greeted him with a thick silence. Normally, Lauren would have music playing or the TV softly humming, but tonight nothing. He frowned, setting the grocery bag on the small foyer table. The house felt oddly still, like it was holding its breath. He peered into the living room, empty. The lamp was off, blinds half closed. No sign of Lauren. Usually, she was either in the living room scanning social media or in the kitchen scrolling recipes, especially around this time. Maybe she's upstairs reading, he reasoned. But a flutter of unease gnawed at him. In the distance, he caught a faint sound like muffled voices, or maybe moaning? A surge of confusion hit him. Could she be watching some show with headphones? But the sound had a distinctly intimate quality, like soft gasps interspersed with hush. He swallowed, stepping carefully down the hallway. Anxiety spiked his pulse. The last time he'd heard such a noise was, well, during an impassioned moment between them. But that had been weeks, even months, since their intimacy had cooled. His mind raced. Should I just call out her name? "Lauren, you there?" But something held him back, the sense that something was deeply off. He paused at the base of the staircase, listening more intently. Yes, that was definitely some sort of hushed, intimate sound drifting from the master bedroom upstairs. An icy dread settled over him. No, it can't be what I think. But the primal suspicion refused to let go. With shaky steps, he ascended, each stair creaking ominously beneath his weight. The hall light was off, leaving only the faint glow of the bedroom lamp seeping through a partially closed door. The muffled moans sharpened in his ears. Halfway up, David hesitated, heart hammering. This is insane. Maybe she's just, I don't know, on the phone. Yet the moans were unmistakable, someone's breathy exclamation, distinctly male. David's stomach clenched. At the top landing, he paused, body rigid. The bedroom door was ajar by a few inches, golden lamplight spilling out. He heard a man's voice, low and husky. "God, you're incredible, Lauren," followed by Lauren's soft gasp. David's vision blurred in sudden heartbreak. "She's with another man. In our bed." He inhaled raggedly, summoning nerve enough to push the door with trembling fingers. It swung open another foot, revealing an image that seared into David's memory forever. Lauren, hair askew, sprawled with sheets barely covering her waist, pressed against a tall, athletically built stranger. The man's bare back glistened with sweat under the bedside lamp. A strangled noise escaped David's throat, half gasp, half cry. He felt like he'd just stepped off a cliff. The bed squeaked as the pair jolted in alarm, the stranger twisting around. Lauren's eyes went wide with horror, her cheeks flushing. "David!" she blurted, voice choked with panic. Time slowed. David's chest squeezed, tears pricked the corners of his eyes. He wanted to roar, to lunge, to demand answers. Instead, he stood there, fists clenched, mouth open in silent agony. Lauren scrambled upright, grabbing for a robe that lay crumpled on the floor. The stranger, similarly frantic, yanked on his pants, nearly tripping. The bed was in disarray, pillow tossed aside, the faint scent of cologne and betrayal hanging in the air. "David, oh God! This isn't—" Lauren stammered, voice shaking. But what explanation could possibly fix this? The stranger glared at David, then looked away, muttering curses as he zipped his pants. "I didn't know you said," he sputtered to Lauren, but the words blurred. David's mind roared with a cacophony of heartbreak. "How long? Why? This can't be real." He stepped back, fresh tears blurring his vision, anger throbbing in his temples. For a split second, he envisioned tackling the man, but he also felt a wave of despair so crushing he could barely breathe. Lauren tried to approach him, tears streaming. "David, wait, I can explain." She reached out, but he recoiled, trembling with fury. "Don't touch me," he hissed, voice cracking. A swirl of rage demanded he lash out, but a suffocating sorrow clamped him. He turned on his heel and stormed out of the room, stumbling down the stairs. Lauren called after him, "David! David, please!" But he didn't stop. He felt physically sick, chest tight, soul hollowed. This was the woman he'd loved, planned a future with. Imagining children and shared milestones. In a single brutal moment, everything collapsed. At the foot of the stairs, he snatched an old blanket from the living room couch, some primal impulse to have something to sleep on outside. He refused to remain under the same roof tonight. "David!" Lauren's voice was closer now, ragged with desperation. He heard her footsteps pounding behind him. He threw open the front door and rushed onto the driveway. The humid night air wrapped him in a suffocating cloak. He fumbled with his car keys, tears running hot down his cheeks. Lauren, half wearing the robe, stepped onto the driveway, sobbing. "Please don't go. Let me explain. It was a mistake." He spun around, face twisted in grief and rage. "A mistake?" he spat. You were with him in our bed." A wave of fresh agony choked him. "Stay the hell away from me, Lauren." She tried to grab his arm, but he yanked free. "David, I never meant to," he roared. "Shut up, just shut up!" He could see neighbors peeking from curtains, drawn by the commotion. Shame and heartbreak burned through him. "I can't deal with this." David dove into his sedan, locked the doors as Lauren pounded on the window, pleading. He turned the ignition, reversed out of the driveway with a squeal of tires. In the rearview mirror, he caught a glimpse of her crumpling onto the lawn, robe slipping off one shoulder, face buried in her hands. The tall stranger was nowhere to be seen. Possibly he'd fled out a side door. Coward. As David sped away into the darkness, tears blurred his vision. A tempest of emotions battered him. Humiliation, heartbreak, smoldering hatred. He had no plan, no idea where to go. My life just imploded, hammered in his head. He pulled into a quiet parking lot a few miles away, switched off the engine, and sat there, trembling, tears leaking. He grabbed the old blanket from the back seat, folding it over himself. The phone buzzed repeatedly, Lauren's calls, no doubt. He set it to silent, ignoring everything. By midnight, exhausted sobs gave way to a numb daze. He drifted into a fitful sleep. The last image in his mind, that of Lauren's guilty face, entwined with a stranger. Somewhere around 2 a.m., his phone buzzed again, but the name on the screen was Lance, his closest friend. David hesitated, eventually answered with a shaky whisper. "Hey." Lance's voice was heavy with concern. "Man, I got your text earlier, something about she did it. What's going on?" David closed his eyes, fresh tears stirring. "I found her, Lance, with another man. In my bed." A long silence. "Oh shit, David, I'm so sorry." David sniffled, anger lacing his words. "She betrayed me. I have nothing left." Lance tried to comfort him. "Where are you now? Let me pick you up." But David refused. "No. Need space. I can't face anyone. I just want to figure out what to do next." The call ended with Lance's promise to be there any time. David sank back, hugging the blanket, fury smoldering beneath the heartbreak. "She won't get away with this," he vowed silently, tears on his cheeks. "I'll make them both pay." Come morning, sunlight crept across the car's windshield, waking David from a restless doze. His neck ached, heart still bruised. The first coherent thought that surfaced. I need a plan. He refused to be a doormat. Her tears wouldn't mend this. He despised the notion of forgiving idiot behavior. If anything, the betrayal stoked a thirst for retribution. He fired up the car, resolved to shower and gather himself. Lauren's frantic texts glowed on his phone. He skimmed them, reading lines like, "Please come home. I'm so sorry, I love you." It meant nothing. He felt only a bitter sneer. Words are cheap. With trembling determination, he set a new course for his life. No simple meltdown, no petty outburst. I'll do this smart, gather facts, secure my future, and then crush them. He felt a cold wave of adrenaline, surprising himself. Yes, I'll become more than just the cuckold. He shifted into gear, driving off to find a cheap motel, somewhere to wash up. A new chapter of his life, one overshadowed by heartbreak, but fueled by a cunning desire for revenge, had begun. Chapter 2. David awoke in a dim, cramped motel room, the ceiling fan squeaking overhead. He'd arrived just after dawn, wearing the same rumpled clothes from yesterday's heartbreak. The bed was stiff, the pillows flat, but at least he'd scrubbed himself in the tiny shower, rinsing away the stale sweat and tears. Now, lying on the scratchy sheets, he stared at the drab wallpaper, replaying last night's events, catching Lauren in bed with a stranger, her frantic apologies, his own emotional meltdown. That wasn't a nightmare. It happened. The sting felt like a fresh bruise. He rolled over, checking his phone. Over a dozen missed calls from Lauren, plus an avalanche of messages. He hesitated, curiosity prodding him to read a few. Lauren. "David, it was a horrible mistake. I don't know what came over me." Lauren. "You have to come home, so we can talk this through." Lauren. "Please answer. I'm worried sick." He felt revulsion and a sliver of hollow sadness. How could she do it in our own bed? Then fury spiked. "Don't waver. She's not worth it." Still in bed, David read more of her messages. Some were tearful pleas, others borderline defensive, referencing the misunderstanding. as if there was any misunderstanding about her thrashing in bed with another man. He scoffed at the audacity. One voice note had her weeping, "I swear he meant nothing. Please come back. We can fix this." Hearing her sob might have stirred pity if he wasn't so raw from betrayal. Instead, he felt only cold resentment. He opened a note-taking app, typed a quick bullet. Ignore or block her attempts for now. Focus on seeing a lawyer? Possibly. Or gather more intel first. Revenge plan. Must do it right. He wanted to secure his finances, protect any shared assets, possibly expose Lauren's lover. But step one, gather clarity on who this man was. Rolling out of bed, David changed into fresh clothes from his trunk. The motel's mirror showed a man with bloodshot eyes, unshaven cheeks, heartbreak etched into his gaze. He forced a calmer expression. "Pull it together." He weighed. Going to Lance's place, Lance had offered his couch, but David craved solitude to process, to strategize. So he texted Lance, "I'm okay. Need alone time, we'll update soon." Then tossed his phone onto the bed, rummaging for a pack of crackers he'd stashed. No appetite, but he needed energy. By noon, David decided to visit Peter, a retired entrepreneur who'd once guided him through the labyrinth of software startups. In the darkest times of David's career, Peter offered fatherly advice. Maybe he could do the same for David's personal crisis. So David drove to Peter's cozy bungalow, an older place with a well-tended garden. Peter opened the door, mild surprise in his gray eyes. "David? Good to see you, son. You look troubled." David managed a wan smile. "That's putting it mildly." Inside, they sat on a worn leather couch while Peter brewed tea. David recounted the betrayal in hushed, anguished detail. The older man listened intently, occasionally nodding, brow furrowed with sympathy. Finally, Peter sighed. "I'm sorry, my boy, that's brutal. But heed this. You must keep your head. Don't do anything rash like confronting them physically or destroying property. That could harm you more." David clenched his fists, recalling how easily he could have attacked that man. "I won't. I'm past that. I want to be methodical, ensure she doesn't take advantage of me financially or smear me." Peter nodded approvingly. "Gather facts, secure your resources, then decide how to proceed. Revenge, if you choose it, must be done carefully. Otherwise, you might sabotage yourself." David exhaled, shoulders easing. "Yes, that's exactly it. I'll be cunning." Leaving Peter's home, David's mind crystallized. He would not be the weeping, confused spouse who begs for half-truths or begs for love. He'd be the methodical avenger, someone who ensures Lauren realizes the cost of her betrayal. No quick confrontation, no hasty fights. Instead, he'd orchestrate everything behind the scenes, unraveling any illusions she might cling to. He also recognized the need to lawyer up eventually. But first, he wanted more intelligence. Who exactly is this lover? Could Lauren be using me for some financial scheme? Are they planning something bigger? The mention of someone dangerously connected in the storyline from last night's text indicated it could be more complicated than just a fling. David refused to be a gullible mark. Back at the motel, David scrolled social media to see if Lauren posted anything. Sure enough, on her Facebook page was a vague statement about marital conflict and how people overreact sometimes. She implied David jumped to conclusions, which stoked David's fury. The gall to paint him as the one overreacting? He typed a scathing comment, but refrained from hitting post. No, public fights on social media are tacky. He closed the app, exhaling. She was trying to control the narrative. Let her. Once I gather the real dirt, her illusions will crumble. That evening, an unfamiliar number texted him. "David, this is Jill. We need to talk. I have info about Lauren's affair." He recognized the name from the outline of events. Jill was supposedly Lauren's close friend, or at least in her circle. Possibly the same Jill whose fiancé was rumored to be the lover. A swirl of suspicion. Is Jill friend or foe? Why contact me now? Maybe she's double-crossing Lauren. David texted back cautiously, setting a coffee shop meeting for the next afternoon. She claimed, "This is bigger than you know. I can't watch you get destroyed." He frowned. Destroyed? Is this lover aiming not just to bed Lauren, but to undermine me in some professional capacity? At the motel's small desk, David opened his laptop, rummaging through his personal finances, joint accounts with Lauren, and any connected business accounts. If this affair had a deeper motive, maybe Lauren was funneling funds or forging documents. So far, he saw no obvious irregularities, but that didn't guarantee she wasn't planning something. He tapped on a scratchpad file. Potential angles. 1. She and lover plan to sabotage my software pitch or project. 2. They want to leverage me for money. 3. Personal vendetta. Though still reeling from heartbreak, David found that focusing on a revenge plan gave him a perverse sense of clarity. Next day, at a tucked-away coffee shop, David spotted Jill standing near the window, fidgeting. She was mid-20s, blonde, dressed in a simple blouse. On seeing David, she offered a tentative smile, eyes flicking with nerves. "Hi, thanks for agreeing to meet." He gave a curt nod, pulling out a chair at a secluded table. "You said you had truths to share about Lauren?" Jill swallowed, glancing around as if someone might be eavesdropping. "Yes, I should confess, I knew about the affair for months. Lauren confided in me. I tried telling her it was a bad idea, but she insisted she was in love or something. Then it got complicated." David's jaw tightened. "You told me in your text it's deeper. How so?" She leaned forward, voice hushed. "That man she's with, he's connected to your industry. Something about wanting to push you out of a big upcoming software merger. He claims you're a threat." A chill raced up David's spine. "Threat? As in professional sabotage?" Jill nodded. "Lauren mentioned he wanted her to glean inside info from you, then feed it to his associates. Possibly so they can undercut your pitch or present your work as their own. I'm not fully sure. But Lauren was complicit. She bragged about how she'd ensure you never see it coming." David stared at Jill in stunned silence. So not only was Lauren unfaithful, but also actively collaborating with a rival to undermine David's entire software endeavor? This is beyond a fling. It's betrayal on every level. His heartbreak morphed into a searing vow. "I'll expose them. They think they can quietly ruin me while playing me for a fool? No chance." He cleared his throat, voice tight. "Why tell me this, Jill? Are you truly trying to help me? Or are you just saving your own skin?" Jill's eyes welled with tears. "I regret standing by Lauren. I didn't realize how far they'd go. My fiancé is, well, close to that man, so I overheard bits. I can't stomach it anymore. You deserve a warning." A swirl of conflicting feelings, gratitude for the tip, anger she withheld it so long. But David forced composure. "Fine. Thank you for telling me. Keep me updated if you learn more." Jill sighed in relief. "Be careful, David. They're not messing around." Chapter 3. After Jill's bombshell revelation, David's heartbreak hardened into a razor-sharp focus. He would not simply confront Lauren with raging accusations. Instead, he planned a stealthy approach, gather real, undeniable evidence. Then, at the moment of maximum impact, reveal everything. He pictured the shock on Lauren's face, the humiliation that would befall her lover. The thought stirred a grim satisfaction. So step 1. Move back into the house, or at least pretend to, re-establish some semblance of normalcy. He needed inside access to observe Lauren's moves, because if Jill was right, Lauren and her partner wanted to feed David's data to a rival firm. If David vanished entirely, they might accelerate some hidden plan. Better to show them a calm, gullible David. He drove up the driveway around dusk, noticing the blinds partially open. The thought of stepping inside that same bedroom where he found her with another man twisted his gut, but he forced it down. It's necessary. He unlocked the door. The house felt tense, like the walls themselves braced for confrontation. Lauren stood in the living room, looking exhausted, eyes reed-rimmed. The moment she saw him, fresh tears threatened. "David, you came back." He forced a neutral expression, shrugged. "We need to talk. But first I need to rest. I've been sleeping in my car in motels. I can't keep living like that." She exhaled shakily. "I'm so sorry. Let's discuss everything. We can fix this." A flicker of disgust rose in him, but he masked it with a faint nod. "Let's see." Inside, though, he had no intention of fixing anything in the marital sense, just fix them for good. Over the next few days, David feigned partial forgiveness in front of neighbors who noticed his car back in the driveway. He walked around with Lauren, returning their waves. When old friends asked, he offered vague statements about working through a rough patch. He had to lull her into a false sense of security. Behind closed doors, their interactions were stilted. She tried hugging him. He'd slip away, complaining of a headache. She prepared special dinners or left "I love you" notes, but he only responded with polite indifference. He could see her confusion. Was he softening or still furious? Being a skilled software engineer gave David a clear advantage. Late one night, while Lauren was in the shower, he installed discrete keystroke loggers on her devices. He placed tiny cameras in the living room and home office, pointing them inconspicuously. He also set up an old phone under her car seat to track her location. He felt a twinge of guilt at the invasion of privacy, but it evaporated when he remembered her collusion with a rival. If they aimed to sabotage him, every piece of data was fair game. She started this war. The hidden camera logs soon confirmed his suspicions. On a day when David pretended to be out meeting a client, Lauren's lover arrived, the same tall man David recognized from that night, though David didn't have a name yet. Through the camera's audio, David caught fragments of their conversation. They mentioned some insider contacts at David's firm, referencing a big project David was spearheading. The words, "Let's get him out of the merger deal entirely," stood out. So they definitely plan to ruin my career. He also glimpsed them discussing finances, referencing large sums. Lauren asked, "When do I see my cut?" The man gave a smug laugh, promising her a sweet payoff once David's out of the picture. Rage simmered in David's veins. She was not just cheating physically, she was planning to profit from his downfall. "I will bury them both," he vowed. David confided in Lance, meeting him at a discreet diner. Lance listened in shock, jaw clenched. "So it's more than an affair? They want to sabotage your big software pitch? That's insane." David sipped coffee, nodding. "Exactly. And I have them on tape. I'm building a library of incriminating evidence wired the whole house. They're too arrogant to suspect I'd do that. But I might need help. Someone to confirm times, places, be a witness." Lance's eyes flashed with loyalty. "Name it. I'm in." During the following week, David compiled hours of recordings. He discovered that Lauren's lover was apparently Jill's fiancé, which Jill had hinted at, but never stated outright. He watched with a twisted sort of fascination as Lauren confided in the man about David's schedule, David's project deadlines. They even rummaged through David's desk, taking photos of code drafts or financial statements. Lauren's posture sometimes hinted at guilt, like she'd exhale shakily, muttering that David doesn't deserve this. The lover would hush her, reminding her of the money they'd gain. David's heartbreak vied with fury. She's not forced. She's cooperating. From the stolen glimpses, David gleaned that the man was aligned with some competitor, aiming to snatch David's upcoming pitch to a major software investor. If David's project was compromised, the competitor would present a near-identical product first, overshadowing David's. The investor might lose faith in David, handing the lucrative deal to the lover's associates. Hence, they needed David's IP, code architecture, or inside knowledge. Lauren was the Trojan horse, the ultimate betrayal. One evening, Jill texted David in a panic. "He's telling Lauren to finalize forging your name on financial papers. She's in deeper than you know." Furious, David demanded an in-person meeting. At a small cafe, Jill arrived, eyes darting. She insisted. "I tried to talk Lauren out of it, but she won't listen. She's convinced she'll be set for life once your pitch flops." David's chest constricted. "So she's forging my name?" He pictured some twisted scenario where she took a share of the business or drained accounts. Jill nodded. "I saw them messing with documents. I'm so sorry." He glared. "You've known for months, Jill, but you never warned me until it was nearly too late." She bowed her head. "I was misguidedly loyal to my fiancé. Then I realized how monstrous he is. Forgive me or not, I just wanted you to know." That night, David rummaged in Lauren's closet while she was out, spotting a shoebox stuffed under old sweaters. Inside, he found half-completed forms with his signature forged. They implicated him in some suspicious loan or fraudulent transaction, possibly an attempt to pin blame on him if the sabotage plan didn't suffice. They'd frame me for fraud, he realized, chills creeping up his spine. He carefully photographed every page, replacing them exactly. No confrontation. "I want them to think they still hold the advantage," he thought, carefully exiting the closet. The sting of heartbreak was overshadowed by a potent, steely resolve. "I'll destroy them on my own terms." Chapter 4. In the days that followed, David watched from the corner of his eye as Lauren moved about the house with an air of growing tension. Sometimes she acted sweet, cooking him breakfast, asking about his day. Other times, she discreetly disappeared for hours, presumably meeting her lover. Through the camera feed, David spotted repeated references to forging his signature on loan papers or funneling funds from his personal savings. She told her lover in one recorded snippet, "He's so preoccupied, I can slip anything past him." The man laughed, praising her cunning. David fumed but bided his time, carefully collecting each incriminating conversation. Amid the swirl of vengeance, David occasionally glimpsed Lauren with watery eyes, holding her phone as if wanting to text him something heartfelt. She'd brush his arm softly in the kitchen, whisper, "I do love you, you know." A flicker of old affection twisted David's gut once upon a time. He'd have melted at that vulnerability. But now he recognized it as possible manipulation. "Don't let guilt weaken you," he reminded himself. "She's playing both sides." David decided to check their joint bank accounts more thoroughly. Sure enough, he found one account with a suspicious deposit, $15,000, that Lauren had claimed was from a friend's investment. She never mentioned it before. Likely hush money from her lover. He also noticed a credit card under David's name racking up charges at fancy restaurants he'd never visited. So she's going on lavish dates with him? On my dime? The audacity fueled David's fury. He canceled the card immediately, anticipating her confusion or anger once it was declined next time. To dig deeper, David monitored Lauren's phone logs. She had frequent calls with Audrey, a colleague from a prior job. The camera audio indicated Audrey was in on the sabotage plan, referencing the final blow. Possibly Audrey was helping launder data to the competitor. One evening, David pretended to be asleep, drifting in the living room with headphones. He heard Lauren in the study, on the phone, whispering about completing the puzzle for a big meeting soon. Her tone was hushed, excited. David clenched his jaw. They planned to coincide with my big investor pitch in a few weeks. Sure enough, David had an upcoming pitch to a major venture capitalist group, an opportunity for huge funding, perhaps even a game-changing merger. If the competitor swooped in with David's stolen code or a sabotage attempt, it could cost him everything. But David had a plan. I'll let them think they're stealing the real code. In reality, it'll be decoy data that sets them up for failure. He smirked at the cunning thought. Yes, let them invest resources in worthless prototypes. Meanwhile, I'll finalize the real software on a secure server. Then came a day that hammered David's resolve further. He overheard Lauren on a call with the lover boasting, "He still thinks I'm just trying to fix our marriage. Ha! Once we finalize the sabotage at his pitch, we'll ghost him for good." Her lover chuckled about picking out a condo in another city. David's heart twisted. So she's planning an entire new life with him, financed by my downfall. If any lingering pity remained, it dissolved in that moment. As the pitch date neared, tension soared. David found it hard to keep acting normal around Lauren, especially when she turned sweet. She'd say, "Let's watch a movie tonight," pressing closer to him on the couch. Inside, he seethed, wanting to recoil from her treacherous touch. But he played along, offering a half smile, letting her believe she still controlled him. At times, he locked himself in the spare bedroom to work, secretly refining his real code on an external drive. He trusted no device in the house. Peter sensed David's exhaustion. Over coffee, he told David, "I worry about you. You're consumed by revenge. That can be corrosive." But David shook his head. "I won't do anything illegal or violent, just exposing them. They want to ruin my career, I'll turn that blow back on them. Then I can walk away free." Peter sighed. "Just ensure it doesn't eat your soul in the process." The final piece of David's plan involved carefully placing fake code in a secure folder on his home computer, a folder he knew Lauren's lover would try to hack. He wrote a plausible but flawed architecture for the software, riddled with misdirections. Then he faked messages hinting that this was the final version for the pitch. Sure enough, the hidden camera caught Lauren emailing those files to her lover. The next day, David saw a text on Lauren's phone. "Got the files? Great job, babe. He's finished." The man exuded cocky triumph. As if that weren't enough, David installed a small device in the study that recorded keystrokes plus webcam feeds. He watched footage of Lauren forging David's signature on an official letter that essentially gave her lover partial ownership in David's project. She texted the digital copy, giggling about how David will never see it coming. David felt a wave of heartbreak so intense he nearly vomited, but also a savage satisfaction that he had bulletproof proof now. "You're the one who'll never see it coming, Lauren." Chapter 5. David awoke early. The Florida sun just barely illuminating the curtains of his shared bedroom, a space that now felt tainted by Lauren's deceit. Despite the throbbing ache of heartbreak, he forced himself to run through a mental checklist. Check new phone logs from the lover, review hidden camera footage, finalize decoy data. The plan was in motion. He no longer felt like the tearful victim, but the quiet orchestrator of their undoing. He slipped out of bed silently. Lauren stirred on her side, eyes fluttering open. Once upon a time, she would have greeted him with a sleepy smile or gentle, "Good morning." Now she looked wary. "You're up early again?" she muttered, half asleep. David shrugged, swallowing the hurt that still twisted inside him. "Lot of work to do," he said curtly. Then, without another word, he left the room. He couldn't bear any forced niceties. Downstairs, He brewed coffee. The aroma usually comforted him, but tension gnawed at his gut. This is the day I'll start planting the final seeds. Yesterday's revelations about the forged documents, the lover's grand sabotage plan, only hardened his resolve. They intended to ruin him professionally. He'd use their overconfidence to ruin them first. Lauren appeared in the kitchen, hair down, wearing a robe that once stirred affectionate memories in David. She took a seat at the table, fiddling with a coffee mug. "Listen, about everything I want us to talk, really talk. We can't keep tiptoeing." David kept his back to her, rinsing a spoon in the sink. "Talking won't change what you did," he said evenly, forcing a calm that belied his inner rage. "You made choices. Now we live with them." She sighed, tears threatening. "David, I know I messed up. I want to fix this," he snorted inwardly. "Fix it? You're still meeting your lover behind my back." Out loud, he said, "Then stop pushing me. I need space. Let's not pretend we're fine." He turned, offering a glare that silenced her. She blinked, tears rimming her eyes. "Fine," she whispered, snatching her coffee mug. "I'll back off." She left the kitchen, shoulders slumped. A flicker of guilt pricked David's heart. He still felt that old, protective urge. But the memory of her betrayal, of her forging his name, drowned out any compassion. He had to maintain this detached front to ensure they believed he remained partially clueless, partially conflicted. Better they think I'm just a hurt husband stumbling along. Retreating to the study, a small room with a heavy oak desk, David locked the door. He'd claimed he needed privacy to focus on his upcoming software pitch. In truth, he pulled out a separate laptop, one Lauren didn't know about, that housed the real code for his project, secure behind multiple encryptions. He spent hours refining it, ensuring the logic was bulletproof, making it more advanced than the decoy they'd stolen. This pitch was his shot at a major venture capitalist infusion money that could catapult his startup into the big leagues. If the competitor tried presenting his code first, they'd embarrass themselves with the flawed decoy. He pictured the confusion on that man's face, the shock on Lauren's, when it all collapses. A grim satisfaction curled in his chest. Then he scrolled through the hidden camera feed from overnight. The living room camera showed Lauren pacing after midnight, phone in hand, whispering to her lover. "I think David's warming up to me again," she told him, ironically. "He's withdrawn, but I see glimpses he might trust me soon enough to share the final design." The lover congratulated her. David smirked. They'll be in for a rude awakening. Around midday, David's phone buzzed with a call from Peter. Though David had just spoken with him days prior, Peter's fatherly concern lingered. "How's the plan shaping up, David?" he asked once David stepped outside for privacy. David updated him about the decoy data already stolen, the real code nearly complete. "They're taking the bait," he said. "Lauren and that guy truly think I'm clueless. The pitch is in a week." Peter's voice held a note of caution. "Be sure to keep your finances safe. Don't let them frame you for any wrongdoing." David exhaled. "I'm on it. I canceled joint cards, secured personal accounts. She might attempt forging more signatures, but I have everything tracked. She'll end up incriminating herself further." Peter sighed. "I just hope you come out intact emotionally. This kind of revenge can devour a man." A flicker of gratitude rose. "I appreciate your worry, Peter, but trust me, I need to do this. Once it's done, I can heal. They won't get away scot-free after murdering my career aspirations and maybe more." Peter murmured a subdued, "All right, son," before they ended the call. Late that afternoon, David pretended to step out for groceries. Instead, he parked around the block, then watched the hidden camera feed on his phone. Sure enough, the man arrived a tall silhouette at the front door. Lauren let him in, kissing him quickly, eyes darting with guilt. They moved to the living room couch. The camera angle caught them discussing final sabotage details. The lover revealed, "We'll present the stolen code under my firm's banner. The investors meet us 2 days before David's pitch. He'll walk into an empty well. By the time he arrives, they'll have no interest left in him." Lauren's face flickered with uncertainty. "And you promise me once that's done, I get the payoff?" He smirked. "Yes. We'll sign you on as a consultant, plus that little bonus in your account. Then we can vanish from this dead-end suburb." Hearing that made David's blood boil. She truly planned to run off with the guy. But for a moment he glimpsed something in her expression. Was that sadness or second thoughts? Hard to tell. She quickly nodded, leaning in for a quick kiss. David, sitting in his car, rewound that snippet of footage. He noticed Lauren's posture stiffening whenever the lover mentioned ruining David. She responded with half-hearted nods or a forced laugh. Could it be she feels pangs of remorse, or is she just nervous about the plan failing? He shook off the question. Remorse or not, she kept forging ahead with the sabotage. That was enough betrayal, David reminded himself. She had ample chances to come clean, to call it off. Instead, she pressed on. That weekend, ironically, one of David's relatives, his cousin Beth, had a small get-together for her birthday. Lauren insisted they attend together to maintain appearances. David saw an opportunity. Keep up the facade of a couple reconciling so no one suspects his sting operation. They drove there in tense silence. Lauren occasionally shot David hesitant glances. "Thank you for letting me come," she said softly, as if he were granting her a favor. He mumbled, "Let's just get through it," pulling into Beth's driveway. The party was low-key, a small backyard barbecue, relatives chatting, kids running around. David forced polite smiles, while Lauren played the doting partner, hooking her arm through his, laughing at jokes. Beneath it, David seethed. This hypocrisy is sickening, but the plan demanded he endure. Midway through, Beth cornered David, curiosity shining. "I sense tension. You two okay?" He plastered on a half-smile. "We hit a rough patch. Working on it." Beth gave a sympathetic nod. "Take care of yourself, David. You look worn down." He only nodded. Inside, he thought, soon all of this pretense ends. During a lull at the party, David overheard Lauren on her phone, behind the fence, presumably talking to her lover. She whispered, "Yes, I'm stuck at a family thing. David's with me, but clueless as ever. We're still on schedule for next week, right?" Then a grin. "Perfect." David's pulse quickened. "So the big sabotage meeting is next week, the same time frame as David's own pitch." He quietly strolled away before she noticed him eavesdropping. A sense of final countdown set in. 1 week until everything climaxed. That night, David took further precautions. He quietly transferred key personal funds into a newly opened account Lauren knew nothing about. He also updated his will and wrote a brief letter to Lance, instructing him what to do if something unexpected happened, like if the conspirators got violent. He felt a pang of paranoia, but didn't consider it unwarranted. They're messing with big stakes. If cornered, who knows what they'd do. He also arranged with the local police off the record to keep an eye on suspicious activity near his address. A friend from the force who owed Lance a favor agreed to occasionally pass by. In the final days before the pitch, Lauren seemed more keyed up, oscillating between affectionate gestures like cooking an elaborate dinner and anxious phone calls behind David's back. She'd return from secret errands breathless, stashing documents in her dresser. David watched via hidden camera, capturing each incriminating moment. One night, she came to bed late, eyes red as if she'd been crying. He pretended to be asleep but sensed her gaze on him, soft fingertips brushing his shoulder. She whispered, "I'm sorry," barely audible, then turned away. David's heart clenched with a swirl of heartbreak and scorn. Why bother with half apologies now? You're about to sabotage me. But he stayed silent, letting the tension hover. Everything changes in just a few days, he reminded himself, lying awake for hours. Chapter 6. The day before David's official pitch, Lauren's lover asked for a final in-person rendezvous. They chose an upscale hotel downtown, presumably to finalize stolen data. David discovered this plan by scanning Lauren's messages, which referenced meeting at the Skyline Hotel, room 8112, 8 p.m. Perfect. This gave David the chance to stage a more elaborate sting. He booked the adjoining suite under a phony name, paying in cash. Meanwhile, Lance volunteered to be near the hotel corridor in a casual disguise. David also arranged some discreet audio equipment in the hallway, wanting crystal-clear recordings. This is the place they'll discuss the finishing blow, my downfall. Once captured on tape, they'd have no excuses. That evening, David arrived at the Skyline Hotel well before Lauren. He wore simple jeans and a baseball cap, hoping not to be recognized. He carried a small duffel containing many listening devices, a spare phone camera rig, plus the real code files he intended to keep hidden. He checked into Suite 810, just 2 doors from 812. Then he and Lance quickly set up. A micro mic was placed under a hallway table near the lovers' suite. Another was in the potted plant across the corridor. Lance strolled around wearing a bellhop uniform, though the hotel management had no clue he'd bribed an actual bellhop for the outfit and the name badge. It wasn't strictly legal, but David needed a witness. From the peephole in David's suite, he saw Lauren exit the elevator, wearing a sleek dress that David recognized, one she used to wear on their anniversary dinners. Bitterness flared. She clutched a purse, glancing around nervously. Then the tall lover appeared from the opposite elevator bank. They greeted each other with a quick kiss, the man's arm sliding around her waist. Lance pretended to be pushing a luggage cart, offered them a brief, "Good evening." The pair nodded distractedly, stepping into Suite 812. Perfect. David's nerves thrummed with tension. Here we go. Inside Suite 810, David powered up a small receiver connected to the microphones outside. The audio crackled to life. Lover's voice. "Did you get the final code from David's home computer?" Lauren. "Yes, the folder labeled Pitch Final Draft. I emailed it to myself. He's so naive, left it unprotected." David bit back a laugh. They truly believe they have the final draft. They continued, the lover bragging about how, once we present tomorrow morning, the investor won't even bother with David in the afternoon. Lauren asked if that meant the big payoff, and he assured her yes money, plus a sweet condo. David grit his teeth, pressing record. This was gold evidence. They spoke about Jill's fiancé, referencing how Jill wavered but remained under control enough. The lover teased, "She might squeal out of guilt, but I'll handle her if needed." That line was chilling. The man was clearly unscrupulous. Meanwhile, Lauren claimed, "If David so much as suspects, I'll distract him tonight. Let him think I'm offering makeup sex or something." The pair chuckled darkly. David's stomach churned. She was planning to seduce him that same night, perhaps to keep him off guard. The pit in his gut deepened, but he forced calm. Yes, keep mocking me, he thought. Dig your own grave. Suddenly, a light knock sounded from the hallway. Through the audio, David heard the door open. A female voice said, "Finally, I caught you guys." David recognized it as Jill. What's she doing here? She was apparently deeply involved despite her prior warnings to David. The trio's conversation was now more frantic. Jill scolded them for risking too much by meeting publicly, but the lover dismissed her worries. Then Jill brandished some documents saying, "We all gotta sign this. It finalizes the forgery if David tries to claim ownership." Lauren hesitated. "Are you sure we need that step? He's oblivious. Let's not complicate it." Jill insisted it was for added protection. David's pulse pounded. "They're finalizing a legal con job." The microphone captured every damning word. The man boasted, "Once we dethrone David at the pitch, I'll personally see him blacklisted in the tech community." Jill chimed in. "We'll blame him for falsifying financial docs. Everyone will assume he crashed and burned." Lauren asked quietly, "So after this, we vanish, right? No going back?" The lover said yes. They'd move to a new city with the capital. Jill seemed uneasy about that plan, worried about David's reaction. The lover laughed it off, certain David was clueless. At one point, the man stepped into the hallway briefly, possibly checking for eavesdroppers. Lance, still in his bellhop uniform, passed by casually with a cart, whistling. The man narrowed his eyes but saw nothing suspicious, re-entering the suite. David let out the breath he'd been holding. They almost got discovered, but they remained none the wiser. David quickly texted Lance. "All good?" Lance responded. "He's paranoid, but still unsuspecting." As the conversation continued, David felt an ache in his chest, hearing Lauren refer to him as just an obstacle. She even ridiculed his emotional meltdown from that first night. "He cried in his car, I bet." She snickered softly, and the lover chuckled. The betrayal cut deep. These weren't mere corporate conspirators, but people who found sadistic amusement in his heartbreak. Tears burned at the corners of David's eyes. "This is the woman I once adored." He clenched his fists, letting the rage keep him focused. Their downfall was now assured. Toward the end, the lover pulled out his phone, calling someone high-level, maybe an exec at the rival firm. He boasted, "We have David's final code. Presenting it tomorrow, 9 a.m. That's hours before his 2 p.m. slot. He'll be a laughingstock." The group cackled, sealing their doom. David smirked behind the suite door, heart pounding. "They have no clue I replaced the code with decoy garbage." The conversation ended with Lauren saying she'd head home soon to act normal, while the lover declared, "We're unstoppable." Chapter 7. David left the Skyline Hotel with Lance, a swirl of triumph and heartbreak. They parted ways in the parking lot, exchanging quick words. "Dude, you got them on tape," Lance whispered excitedly. "They're done." David nodded, lips tight. "Yeah, tomorrow we strike. They'll present the decoy code, humiliate themselves. Meanwhile, I'll show the real deal." Lance gave a supportive pat on David's shoulder. "I'm proud of you, man. This must be soul-crushing, but you're handling it like a pro." David forced a smile, appreciating his friend's concern. "Just gotta get through tomorrow. Then it's game over for them." He climbed into his car, a fierce resolve pulsing in his chest. The next morning dawned bright and tense. David dressed carefully in a crisp shirt, tie, and blazer. He arrived at the plush boardroom of the venture capitalist group around noon, 2 hours after the competitor's scheduled slot. He pretended ignorance about any sabotage. The air buzzed with a sense of confusion. David noticed some quizzical glances from the investors, as if they'd just witnessed a bizarre meltdown earlier. Indeed, the competitor's attempt to present David's decoy code must have gone disastrously. When David took the podium, the lead investor, a middle-aged woman with keen eyes, asked bluntly, "Your competitor pitched something suspiciously resembling your concept. It failed. We'd like to hear your version." David feigned mild surprise. "Really? My competitor? That's unexpected. Well, let me show you the actual solution." Flashing a confident smile, he inserted a USB containing the genuine code. The big screen lit up with a polished demonstration intricate logic, robust features that soared beyond anything the competitor had tried to copy. The investors leaned forward, intrigued. Over 20 minutes, David delivered a crisp, polished pitch, answering every question with clarity. He glimpsed the stunned admiration in their eyes. Unknown to David at that exact moment, Lauren's lover was reeling from the fiasco. He'd presented the stolen code earlier only to discover it was incomplete, bug-ridden, full of placeholders that crashed. The investors apparently grilled him, suspecting deception or incompetence. Furious, he'd stormed out, cursing that something went wrong. Lauren, waiting in a nearby cafe, got a frantic text from him. "Code is junk! David must have tricked us! This is a disaster!" She read it with growing dread, realizing David had them outplayed. Jill also texted her in a panic. "They're blaming me for not verifying the code. The firm is furious." Once David wrapped his pitch, the lead investor nodded with approval. "Very impressive, Mr. Henderson. We've seen a poor imitation earlier, but your demonstration proves you're the original mind behind this. We suspect some unethical attempt to undermine you. We're quite interested in funding your project. Let's talk terms." David's heart soared. He kept a steady exterior, calmly shaking hands. "Thank you," he said, voice laced with quiet satisfaction. "I look forward to a fruitful partnership." Across the hallway, a few reporters from tech magazines lingered, having caught wind of the morning fiasco. Sensing a story, they bombarded David with questions about the competitor's suspicious code similarity. David gave a diplomatic shrug. "I guess some folks tried to steal my concept. It didn't work out for them." Meanwhile, David had alerted certain authorities with the evidence he'd collected. Officers approached the competitors' offices to question the man who attempted the stolen pitch. They possessed recordings of him discussing espionage, forging David's name on documents. The meltdown in the boardroom triggered more suspicion. By midday, the lover faced a harsh confrontation. He was indicted for conspiracy, fraud, and attempted theft of intellectual property. Jill, in a swirl of guilt and panic, tried to shift blame onto him, revealing partial truths to the police. She tearfully claimed she only followed instructions. The lover raged at her, cursing her betrayal. Lauren stood at the periphery, watching her lover get handcuffed, horror dawning on her face. As David emerged triumphant from his pitch meeting, phone in hand, he saw a barrage of frantic texts from Lauren. "David, something terrible happened. He got arrested. Everyone's blaming me. Please call me." He scrolled, lips curling in a grim smile. "She's reaping what she sowed." He tapped an audio snippet from her lover's meltdown call, the man screaming curses about that cunning bastard David outsmarting us. Yes, everything was going according to plan. Tech blogs and local media quickly latched onto the story. A sabotage attempt on a rising software engineer, David, by a competitor, presumably orchestrated by inside information from David's own wife. The story made for sensational reading infidelity, corporate espionage, a dramatic boardroom fiasco. Comment sections lit up with condemnation of the conspirators, praising David as the unstoppable underdog. Lauren, humiliated, tried to do damage control. She posted a lukewarm statement on social media about how she was unaware of the full extent of the sabotage and sorry if her actions misled anyone. But the internet was unforgiving. She got swarmed with negative replies, some calling her the traitorous wife. That evening, David found Lauren pacing in the hallway, tears streaking her cheeks. She whirled on him as he entered the living room. "What did you do?" she demanded, voice trembling. "He's arrested. The cops seized documents from Jill's fiancé. They said your name is all over the complaint. You set him up." David gave her a cold, steady stare. "You set yourselves up by plotting to sabotage me. I just protected myself, she sobbed. I never wanted it to go this far. He said we'd just block your pitch, that it was harmless. He scoffed. Harmless? Stealing my code, forging my signature, framing me for fraud? Doesn't sound harmless. Her tears turned to anger. You acted so clueless, so emotional. But you were recording us all along, weren't you? He nodded. No point lying now. Yes, from the day I caught you in our bed. I realized you were after more than just cheap thrills. Lauren dropped onto the couch, face buried in her hands. David, I'm God. I messed up so badly. I didn't realize how hateful he was. I was carried away by fantasies, money, excitement. I'm so sorry. He heard the quiver in her voice, recognized genuine remorse, or maybe fear of consequences. For a heartbeat, old feelings tugged at him. But he remembered the recordings of her mocking him, forging his name. The fury rose again. Don't you dare ask me to pity you now. You betrayed me, tried to ruin my career, and laughed at my pain. She opened her mouth, tears streaming. I know. I deserve your hatred. But please, can't we salvage something? He exhaled a trembling breath. You ended any chance of that. Expect legal paperwork soon. Unbeknownst to Lauren or David, the lover steaming in jail planned a final blow. In a phone call from behind bars, he threatened David again, cursing that once he posted bail, he'd ruin you both for betraying me. He told an associate, grab those forgeries Lauren made. We'll pin them on David, claim he forced her. But David was already prepared, having digital backups proving Lauren's guilt. The stage was set for a final confrontation if that man tried escaping the law. David's revenge had ignited not just a personal downfall for them, but a swirl of legal nightmares. Chapter 8. In the days following the sabotage fiasco, David's phone nearly melted with incoming calls. Journalists wanting the scandalous scoop, business partners congratulating him on the successful pitch, lawyers confirming next steps in pressing charges. He carefully navigated each call, presenting a composed front. He told most reporters, no comment beyond that justice is being served. Meanwhile, at home, Lauren moped around like a ghost, a mixture of fear and guilt. She still slept in the same house, though David refused to share the bed. He let her remain only to finalize the exit strategy. Officially evicting her required certain legal steps, and he wanted everything lined up perfectly so she couldn't claim spousal sabotage. One morning, David noticed half of Lauren's clothes missing from the closet. She must have been discreetly packing. He caught her in the hallway, carting a small suitcase. "Going somewhere?" he asked, with a raised brow. She mumbled, "Just staying with a friend for a couple nights. I need to figure out my next move." He gave a dismissive shrug. "Fine. Less awkward for both of us." Her eyes flickered with sadness, but she said nothing more. He stood aside, letting her pass. The moment the door clicked shut, a wave of relief washed over him like the house exhaled, free of her presence. Later that evening, she called David from her friend's place, voice trembling. "I know you hate me, but I'm worried about that man. He's out on bail now. He's furious with me for failing the plan. He might lash out at me physically." David felt a pang of concern despite everything, but he also recognized she was reaping the consequences of her entanglement. "Call the police if you're threatened," he said curtly. "I'm not your protector anymore." She let out a soft sob. "I never wanted to destroy you. I was seduced by the excitement, the money. I was so stupid." He remained silent, letting her tears fill the silence. Finally, she whispered, "I'll pack the rest of my stuff soon. Maybe we can talk after I fix my life." "Sure," he said without emotion, ending the call. There's no going back. David's company board, hearing of his dramatic escape from sabotage, rallied around him. They teased him about being the unstoppable coder, but a few colleagues worried about the legal drama overshadowing their progress. David reassured them the competitor was now indicted for espionage. The pitch investor had officially signed a letter of intent to fund David's project, and the future looked bright. He also quietly explained he might need to take some personal leave to handle divorce matters. The board was sympathetic. "Do what you must," they told him. "We trust you." It buoyed him to have unwavering professional support, contrasting the betrayal at home. Lauren tried once more to speak with David in person, arriving unannounced one evening. She found him in the living room, reviewing code logs. She knelt beside him, tears in her eyes. "David, I'm leaving for good soon, but I have to say I regret it all. Not just the affair, but the sabotage. If I could turn back time," he cut her off. "You can't. And I'm done listening." He rose, expression cold. "I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce. Clear your things out this weekend. Don't drag it." She wept openly. "And we just end everything? After years together?" He stared at her, bitterness edging his tone. "You ended it the moment you slept with that man in our bed and then plotted to ruin my career. There's no we now." She bowed her head, tears dropping onto the carpet. "I'm sorry." He walked away, refusing to respond. Local news outlets and tech blogs continued swirling the story, how David overcame a sabotage attempt by a competitor who used David's own wife to glean secrets. A few sensational tabloids labeled Lauren the gold-digging traitor or the cheating spy. She faced public scorn, which prevented her from easily finding a new job or a stable place to live. David read these headlines with a mix of satisfaction and sadness. He never wanted a public scandal, but recognized it as an inevitable outcome of their actions. 2 days later, a new drama. The lover forcibly confronted Lauren, furious that she botched the plan. He even threatened violence. Lauren, terrified, texted David a rapid string of messages. "He's after me. I don't feel safe. Please help me." David cursed under his breath. She's still living in the mess she created. But he wasn't heartless. He texted back a single line. "Call the cops. I'm not your savior." Then blocked her number temporarily to avoid further emotional manipulation. He informed Lance, who shrugged. She made her bed. Let her handle it. David nodded grimly, feeling no desire to rescue her from a danger she chose. The lover, out on bail, tried to forcibly see Lauren, blaming her for failing and for the fiasco that destroyed his reputation. The scuffle ended with neighbors calling the police. He was rearrested for violating bail terms and making threats. This time, the judge revoked bail. He'd stay locked up pending trial. When David heard, a wave of relief coursed through him. The immediate physical threat to either of them was neutralized. Lauren had survived the confrontation, but her illusions of a glamorous future with the lover were thoroughly shattered. Meanwhile, David's firm's legal team decided to press charges and seek damages from both the competitor and from Lauren, citing breach of trust and involvement in corporate espionage. Lauren received formal notice. She tearfully called David. He didn't pick up. This was no longer an internal matter. She'd face civil repercussions that could bankrupt her. She left him voicemails, half weeping, half begging for mercy. He listened to one snippet. "Please, David, you can't let them take everything from me. We were partners once. I never wanted it to escalate so badly. Help me." He deleted it. "You lost that chance, Lauren." Amidst the swirling chaos, a foreign buyer, a major European conglomerate, approached David's firm, expressing interest in acquiring it for an impressive sum. They admired David's code and his crisis management under sabotage. The offer dangled multi-million figures, enough for David to retire young if he wished. He considered it, discussing with Lance and the board. Some board members favored selling, others wanted to keep building. David felt a new calm, a sense that he held all the cards. Regardless of my choice, I've already won. The heartbreak no longer consumed him. He was free to chart his future on his own terms. Chapter 9. The swirl of events following the sabotage fiasco left David in a surreal calm. He had successfully outmaneuvered Lauren, her lover, and their entire conspiracy, securing a major funding deal for his software venture. News outlets covered his story as a cautionary tale of corporate espionage gone wrong. Yet David's personal life lay in tatters. Lauren's betrayal, her partial flight from the house, the knowledge that their marriage was irreparably shattered. Despite emerging victorious, he carried the lingering ache of heartbreak. Days after the meltdown, David stood on the front porch of the suburban home he once cherished. The sun's late afternoon rays slanted across the yard, painting everything in soft gold. He inhaled deeply, grappling with the sense that this place no longer felt like home. In every corner, he saw ghosts of the life he'd envisioned with Lauren cozy nights cooking together, shared laughter at the dinner table, now overshadowed by her hidden agendas. Inside, the living room was sparse. Most of Lauren's belongings were gone. She'd come back in a flurry the previous day, collecting her clothes, personal mementos, and anything that might tie her to the property. She left without a word. A single tearful glance thrown his way before climbing into a taxi. He hadn't stopped her or demanded an explanation. We've said all we needed to say. He wandered through the empty corridors, passing the bedroom door where he'd first discovered her betrayal. That memory still flayed him alive. He forced himself to linger a moment, acknowledging the pain, then moved on. No sense wallowing. If anything, seeing the bare mattress and the vacuum lines in the carpet gave him a sense of finality. This chapter is done. He ended up in the study, flipping open his laptop. Over the past week, he'd combed through new offers for his software startup. The deal with the local venture capitalist was finalized, but a foreign buyer had approached with an even bigger proposition, some European conglomerate that admired his code and crisis handling. Selling entirely would net David a life-changing sum, letting him pivot to new projects or simply retire. Or he could remain partial owner and expand globally. The possibilities were dizzying. At the same time, part of him dreaded being alone with nothing but money and heartbreak. Rebuilding a personal life after such betrayal wasn't straightforward. He sighed, pushing aside the deal documents. I have to settle my personal matters first. Maybe finalize the divorce, see how the legal ramifications for Lauren's sabotage play out. His phone buzzed. A local detective assigned to the competitor's espionage case wanted a quick update. David took the call, confirming he'd turned over all relevant recordings. The detective mentioned the lover was still in custody, bail revoked after he threatened Lauren. The competitor's firm disavowed his actions, claiming ignorance. Meanwhile, Lauren had left a statement with the district attorney that she was duped and coerced. David snorted at the news, though the detective admitted it might reduce her liability in civil court. She's playing victim again, he thought, bitterness coiling in his chest. When the call ended, he stood by the window, gazing at the empty driveway. This house used to symbolize comfort and love. Now it felt like a monument to deception. He mulled over whether to sell it. Perhaps a fresh start somewhere else was best. The doorbell rang. He stiffened, half expecting Lauren's tearful return, but a peek through the window showed Lance, holding a pizza box. David opened the door, letting his friend in with a tired grin. Hey, man. Lance lifted the box. Thought you might need dinner. Place seemed deserted last I saw it. Yeah, David murmured, stepping aside. Thanks. They settled in the living room, the lingering smell of cleaning solvent in the air. Lance cracked open the pizza box pepperoni and mushrooms, offering David a paper plate. David took a slice, forcibly pushing past his lack of appetite. Might as well eat, he told himself. As they ate, Lance eyed the nearly empty house. So Lauren's finally out, huh? David nodded, picking at his slice. Took most of her stuff. Didn't say much. Guess she's hiding from the fallout. The cops, the lawsuits, the asshole boyfriend in jail. Lance let out a low whistle. Hell of a mess. You okay? David exhaled. Better than I expected. I'm not lying in bed crying. I'm mostly numb. He paused, tasting the word. And relieved, I guess. Lance nodded, chewing thoughtfully. We all saw how cunning you handled that sabotage fiasco. But heartbreak's heartbreak. Don't bury it too deep. Peter called me, worried you're shutting down emotionally. David cracked a humorless grin. Peter worries too much. I just need time. Once the legal stuff is done, I can move on. A beat of silence passed. Lance's gaze flickered with sympathy. So what's next? You plan to sell the house? Pack up everything? Start fresh somewhere else? David stared at the pizza, brow furrowing. I'm leaning that way. This place is stained by everything that happened. But let me finalize the divorce first. He hesitated. Also, a foreign buyer wants my entire company. Enough money for me to vanish if I choose. But I haven't decided. Lance nodded with approval. Options are good. You deserve them. Then he tilted his head, eyes narrowing. Ever think about dating again eventually? Might help. David laughed bitterly. Too soon, man. Let me heal first. He set down his half-eaten slice, appetite waning. For now, I'll keep building what I have. That's enough. The next day, David received a surprise call from his mother, who lived out of state. She'd caught wind of the scandal from distant relatives. With motherly concern laced with frustration, she asked, David, what is going on? Someone told me Lauren cheated on you and tried to ruin your job. This is insane. David gave a clipped summary. That's basically it. She's gone. We're divorcing. His mother erupted in shock, sympathy, then mild anger. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I could have helped. He shrugged, though she couldn't see it. It was too messy. I had to handle it myself. She sighed heavily. Well, come visit us. You shouldn't be alone in that house. Let me take care of you for a while. A fleeting temptation flickered in David. An escape to see family might help, but he also needed to tie up the final legal threads. I appreciate the offer. I'm still dealing with attorneys. Once that's done, maybe I'll pop by. He masked the swirling emotions in his voice. His mother agreed, giving him a heartfelt, I love you, son, which David returned softly, tears stinging. Later that afternoon, David found a legal envelope in the mailbox. A notice that Lauren was countersuing for partial ownership in David's software startup, claiming spousal rights. She also alleged she contributed intellectual support to the project. The boldness of it made David see red. She dares to claim a share of what she tried to sabotage. He immediately phoned his corporate lawyer, who basically laughed. She has no credible case, especially given the recorded proof of sabotage. But we'll address it. David took a shaky breath, relief mixing with anger. She's trying a final money grab. The madness never ended. He hammered out an email to Ms. Waverly, the divorce attorney, forwarding copies of Lauren's countersuit. Ms. Waverly responded swiftly, We'll crush this. Don't worry. David felt gratitude for having a solid legal team. But the emotional toll weighed heavily. Even after losing her lover, her reputation, and her standing, Lauren still tried to milk him for money. The next step was the divorce hearing. Typically, such proceedings might drag on, but given the public scandal and the overwhelming evidence of Lauren's fault, Ms. Waverly expected a quick resolution. However, Lauren's countersuit complicated the timeline. She demanded spousal support, claiming she'd been reliant on David's income. She argued the marriage gave her certain entitlements. Ms. Waverly, in turn, aimed to highlight the adultery, the conspiracy, the criminal aspect of her attempts to sabotage David's business. A week before the scheduled hearing, Ms. Waverly arranged a mediation session, hoping to settle out of court if possible. David only agreed to attend to see if Lauren would drop the countersuit. He arrived at a neutral law office. Sitting in a sterile conference room, he faced Lauren for the first time in a formal setting. She wore a conservative blouse, hair pulled back, eyes downcast. Her attorney, a weary-looking man, shuffled papers. Ms. Waverly started, "We're here to see if we can avoid a costly trial. My client seeks a spousal support. Noah set sharing divorce on grounds of infidelity and malicious intent to undermine his livelihood. We have substantial evidence." She slid a folder across the table. Lauren's attorney inhaled, flipping the folder. Inside were transcripts of the recorded sabotage calls, screenshots of her forging documents, even a snippet from the Skyline Hotel fiasco. Lauren's face paled, tears brimming. She mumbled, I never meant it to go so far. I was manipulated." Ms. Waverly cut in. "And you manipulated David, forging his name, stealing code, feeding it to a competitor. That's not a small misstep. We're open to you dropping all claims for David's assets, letting the divorce proceed uncontested." Lauren's attorney tried a half-hearted argument about emotional duress, lack of stable mental state, but it was weak. The evidence was overwhelming. Finally, Lauren whispered, "Fine. I'll drop the countersuit. I just want a minimal settlement. Maybe some transitional support to get back on my feet." David glanced at Ms. Waverly, who offered a silent nod. David exhaled, then said flatly, "I'll pay a small transitional sum if it ends everything permanently. No more claims." Lauren's attorney scribbled notes adjusting the settlement terms. They negotiated a modest figure significantly less than typical spousal, support enough for her to find an apartment and basic living for a short while. Ms. Waverly insisted on a clause that if Lauren caused any further harm or defamed David, the settlement would be void. Throughout the discussion, Lauren's eyes shone with tears. She occasionally glanced at David as if seeking some sign of forgiveness. He kept his gaze cool, determined not to let sympathy erode his stance. She signed the proposed agreement with trembling hands, effectively ending her spousal claims. In the corridor after, she approached David, voice hushed. "Thank you for not leaving me with nothing. I know I don't deserve even that." He nodded, tense. "It's just so we can both move on. Don't read deeper into it." She sniffled, stepping back. They parted ways, the memory of her tear-streaked face lingering in his mind, but overshadowed by the knowledge of how deeply she'd cut him. Returning home, David felt an odd sense of relief. The legal path to divorce was mostly settled. He gazed around the living room, bare walls, half-empty shelves. He began packing up items he wanted to keep, preparing to list the house for sale. Possibly he'd move into a modern condo downtown or a quiet home near the water, something with no ghosts of old illusions. The phone buzzed. A text from Lance. "Hey man, let's grab dinner. Celebrate your Soontobe single status?" David allowed a small smile. Maybe that was exactly what he needed, a light-hearted evening with a loyal friend. No drama. They met at a lively sports bar, neon lights reflecting off polished tables. Over beer and wings, Lance cracked jokes about David's new fame in the tech scene, how he should capitalize on it. David found himself laughing an unfamiliar but welcome release. Between laughs, Lance asked, "Any plan for the foreign buyer's offer? If you sell your startup, you'd get a massive payout. Could vanish, do anything you want." David shrugged. "Tempting, but part of me loves building this software, seeing it grow. Money alone won't fill the void." Lance nodded, sipping his beer. "True, but it'd give you ultimate freedom. Maybe a new city, new people, no reminders of Lauren, or you stay, keep your company, show the world you're unstoppable. Either way, you can't lose." David exhaled, the possibilities spinning in his mind. "I'll weigh it carefully. For now, I'll finalize the divorce, sell the house, see how the rest plays out. Then I'll decide." They clinked beer glasses, a silent acknowledgement that David was forging a new path and this time on his own terms. A few days later, David got a call from a prosecutor handling the competitor's espionage case. The lovers' preliminary hearing was scheduled, and David might be asked to testify about the stolen code. The prosecutor sounded confident they'd secure a conviction, with potential prison time for the man. "We have your recordings, plus documents, plus Jill's partial confession," the prosecutor said. "He's basically cornered." David felt a wave of grim satisfaction, though a pang of sorrow that life had spiraled to criminal charges. But this was their choice. He agreed to appear, ready to confirm how they'd tried to sabotage him. Meanwhile, Jill was rumored to have cut a deal, testifying fully against her fiancé. Lauren was also on the witness list, though her role as a potential co-conspirator was overshadowed by her separate civil settlement with David. On the eve of the lovers' hearing, David received a frantic voicemail from none other than Jill. "David, we need to talk. I discovered new evidence, something about Lauren's possible involvement beyond what we thought. She might have had more direct contact with your boss or that investor. This changes everything." Her voice shook. "Call me soon, please." David listened, heart spiking with fresh alarm. Lauren's involvement deeper than suspected? She was the silent partner in more sabotage attempts? He ended the voicemail, staring into the dimly lit hallway. Even after all this, secrets still lurked. He braced himself. One more piece of the puzzle to face. Chapter 10. The next morning, David arranged to meet Jill at a small diner on the outskirts of town. The sky was overcast, a faint drizzle tapping the windshield as he parked. He stepped in, spotting Jill at a corner booth, anxiously twisting a napkin in her hands. She looked exhausted, pale cheeks, dark circles under her eyes. He slid into the booth, ordering coffee without pleasantries. "You said you found new evidence. What is it?" She leaned forward, voice trembling. "I was sorting through my fiancé's old file stuff he had locked in a trunk. I discovered emails referencing Lauren's direct communications with one of your project investors. She was feeding them negative rumors about your leadership, suggesting the investor back out. Something beyond just code theft, she was actively undermining your reputation to potential backers." David's stomach churned. "So she tried not just a direct sabotage of my code, but also a smear campaign so no investor would trust me?" Jill nodded, tears glistening. "Yes, it predates the infiltration fiasco. She told them you were unprofessional, emotionally unstable. She even concocted a rumor about you forging financial statements for your software deals. She was covering all angles to ensure you'd fail or at least appear unreliable." A cold rage seized David. Lauren's betrayal cut deeper than I realized. So while playing the loving wife at home, she was simultaneously telling lies to scuttle his professional credibility. For a moment, David couldn't speak. He stared at his coffee, knuckles whitening on the mug. The heartbreak flared anew. Had she hated me that much? Or was she so obsessed with the idea of a lavish life with her new partner that no tactic was off limits? Jill's voice wavered. I know you must despise her, and me too, for not coming forward sooner. I was blind, trusting my fiancé's big talk. I didn't realize how vicious Lauren got. She only seemed sweet on the surface. David scoffed. Sweet, sure. She was cunning beneath it all. This proves it. He shook his head, eyes burning. Any chance this new investor she targeted is the same one I ended up closing a deal with anyway? Jill shrugged. The emails didn't specify names, just that she reached out to multiple potential backers. Some might have blocked you from pitching. You overcame it, though, or found alternative routes. Maybe that's why your competitor changed tactics to straight-up code theft. He let out a shaky breath. So she tried to bury me every way possible, character assassination, forging documents, then code sabotage. She was thorough. Good God. Sitting there, David realized this new evidence could further bolster his divorce settlement's terms, proving malicious intent to undermine his livelihood. Ms. Waverly would be thrilled to see this. It'd ensure Lauren's attempts for even a modest settlement might be stripped away, or the settlement could be drastically reduced. He turned to Jill, expression grim. Send me everything you have. If this is legit, it nails her coffin shut in divorce court. She'll be lucky to get a dime. Jill nodded quickly, rummaging in her purse for a thumb drive. Here. I copied the email chain. I just can't keep it hidden anymore. My ex-fiancé did so much damage. I want out of this nightmare. David accepted the drive. A swirl of tension tightened in his chest. Another strike against Lauren. He forced a calm tone. Thank you, and I hope you do the right thing from here on out. Soon, the day of the lovers' preliminary hearing arrived. David was called to testify about the stolen code and how it matched the fiasco at the pitch. The court building buzzed with reporters and curious onlookers. David stepped inside wearing a formal suit, Ms. Waverly at his side. She whispered, Stay factual. No emotional tangents. The recordings speak for themselves. He nodded, face set. The hearing, though not a full trial, was crucial to determine if enough evidence warranted proceeding to trial or a plea deal. The prosecution laid out how the lover conspired with an inside source, Lauren, to sabotage David. They introduced the Skyline Hotel recordings, the staged infiltration of David's code. David took the stand, calmly recounting how he discovered them forging documents and how he replaced the real code with a decoy. The lover glared from the defense table, face twisted with hatred. He occasionally hissed curses under his breath. The defense tried claiming David had entrapped them illegally, but Ms. Waverly and the prosecution pointed out it was David's own home and property. He had every right to record suspicious activity for self-protection. In the end, the judge ruled that the evidence was overwhelming enough to proceed to a criminal trial. Bail remained revoked. The lover was led away in handcuffs, eyes blazing at David. Lauren, called as a witness for the prosecution, sat in the gallery, looking pale. On the stand, she sobbed about how the lover pressured her into sabotage, painting herself as a victim. The defense tried to flip it, labeling her an accomplice. Ultimately, the judge decided her full involvement would be better examined in a separate hearing or in the main trial. For now, the judge recognized her partial cooperation, but also her guilt. She left the courtroom visibly shaken, tears streaking her face. David watched from afar, arms folded. He felt no urge to console her. She avoided meeting his eyes. Once outside, a few reporters pounced on David, seeking a statement about the day's hearing. He offered polite no-comment responses. Then he spotted Lauren standing by the courthouse steps, hugging herself against the wind. She looked at him, lip quivering. He approached warily, half expecting a meltdown. "What do you want?" he asked, tone stony. She sniffled. I can't believe how far this escalated. Seeing him in cuffs, I realized I was complicit in all this madness. He arched a brow. "You realize now? After forging my signature, stealing my code, humiliating me in bed with him?" She shrank under his biting words. "I know. I can't take it back. I'm sorry. God, if I could undo it—" She broke off, voice cracking. David forced a sigh. "Too late for apologies. Focus on dealing with your own legal repercussions. Our divorce is finalizing soon. That's all that matters." He stepped away, ignoring her tears. Armed with Jill's newly provided emails, Ms. Waverly filed an addendum to the divorce settlement, demanding a complete removal of any spousal support. She argued Lauren's malicious attempts spanned months, actively sabotaging David's professional reputation. The new evidence hammered Lauren's credibility further. The judge, upon reviewing it, called an emergency hearing to reconsider the partial transitional support David had initially agreed to. At that hearing, Lauren sat across the table, eyes red with anger and despair. Her attorney tried to argue she was coerced by her lover, but the email chain was explicit in her gleeful disparagement of David to potential investors. The judge concluded she had no moral grounds to claim financial restitution from David. She could keep a small portion of personal items, but zero monetary support. Lauren gasped, turning watery eyes on David. He felt a pang of grim triumph. "She's getting literally nothing." Miss Waverly pressed the point that Lauren should also cover some of David's legal costs. The judge agreed in part, awarding him a portion. Lauren's jaw dropped. Outside the courtroom, Lauren confronted David, tears brimming. "So I walk away with nothing but debt? You can't be that cruel. You once loved me." He met her gaze coldly. "I once did. That person you were might not have existed. I see you now for who you are. You tried to destroy me for money. This is your consequence." She sobbed, covering her face with trembling hands. Passers-by stared but hurried on. David felt a swirl of heartbreak, pity, and righteous anger. He let the moment hang, then turned away, leaving her to crumble. Back at the house, David found the final divorce decree waiting in the mailbox. Ms. Waverly texted him. "It's official. She gets no spousal support, no portion of your business, must pay partial legal fees. You're free." He opened the envelope, scanning the official language. His chest felt tight, a wave of relief mixing with the sadness of a life undone. That's it. Then 8 years of marriage concluded in a flurry of legal documents. The final signature from the judge sealed everything. He walked through the empty halls, letting out a trembling sigh. The heartbreak was real, but so was the sense of liberation. The illusions were gone. The sabotage was thwarted. And he had total control of his future. Late that evening, the phone rang. A lawyer from the foreign conglomerate calling from Europe stating, "We're finalizing our official acquisition offer. We can schedule a flight for you to come discuss in person or handle it virtually. The figure stands at 8 figures plus potential stock options." David's breath caught. That was more money than he ever dreamed possible. He thanked them calmly, promising to consider it. After the call, he sank onto the couch, emotions swirling. The heartbreak chapter was closing, replaced by a chance to catapult his career into a global stratosphere or simply cash out and start anew. The final line in the divorce settlement read, "Lauren Henderson is hereby stricken from any share or claim." David stared at that phrase, letting it sink in. Yes, he thought, tears of mixed sorrow and triumph glistening. I'm free. Chapter 11. A palpable sense of closure wafted through the suburban house in the weeks following the final divorce decree. David finished packing up items, dear to him photo albums from his childhood, not wedding photos, old programming textbooks, keepsakes from simpler times. He'd decided to list the property for sale, not wanting to dwell in the space where betrayal took root. On a crisp morning, real estate agents arrived, snapping photos for the listing. David walked the agent through each room, explaining minor repairs. She asked, "So you're leaving the city or just moving nearby?" He shrugged. "Not entirely sure yet. Might relocate if I accept an acquisition deal for my software company, or I might just get a new place across town." She nodded sympathetically, sensing there was more to the story but not prying. Lauren was nowhere around. She'd cleared out for good. The agent commented that the house's condition was decent, a prime suburban location. Should fetch a decent price. David gave a polite nod. "That's fine," he thought. "I just want this off my shoulders." Ms. Waverly confirmed that Lauren's attempts at collecting spousal support or partial business ownership ended in failure. The judge had hammered that final nail. Now Lauren faced a share of David's legal fees, plus an impending civil lawsuit from David's firm. She'd likely spend years in financial trouble unless she found a stable job. She had left the city, rumored to be couch surfing with a distant cousin. David gleaned these details from scattered sources. A small pang of guilt surfaced, but he reminded himself of her cruel collusion to sabotage him. She's reaping what she sowed. He was done extending any sympathy. The competitor's ex-saboteur, Lauren's lover, had his official trial date scheduled. The DA offered him a plea deal for a lesser sentence if he admitted to orchestrating the theft. He refused, convinced he could talk his way out. That arrogance spelled doom. During pre-trial motions, new revelations emerged about how he threatened Lauren after the fiasco. Coupled with Jill's testimony and David's recordings, the man faced mounting charges. He wrote hateful letters from jail, some directed at David, promising revenge upon release. The authorities noted these threats, likely adding more years to his eventual sentence. Despite all the external successes winning the pitch, finalizing the divorce, defeating conspirators, David carried a quiet hollowness. Betrayal left scars. At nights, he sometimes woke from nightmares featuring Lauren's tearful face or the moment he'd found her in their bed with that man. He sought therapy, recognizing that burying these wounds could lead to long-term damage. In therapy sessions, he opened up about feeling used, how the heartbreak overshadowed even his professional triumph. The therapist guided him to process the pain, not letting rage define him. Over weeks, he gradually found relief, acknowledging that part of him still grieved the love he thought he had. Meanwhile, his software business soared. The local investor who funded him praised his resilience, inviting him to speak at a small tech conference about overcoming adversity in startup life. David hesitated, not wanting to exploit his personal tragedy for publicity, but the investor insisted it would inspire others. So David delivered a talk focusing on pivoting strategies when crisis hits, shaping your network's trust, turning sabotage into an advantage. He briefly alluded to internal betrayals, never naming Lauren. The audience responded with standing applause, enthralled by his grit. In the Q&A, one attendee asked, "So how do you keep going after a personal betrayal?" David answered softly, "You find the reason to rebuild yourself. No matter how raw the heartbreak, you keep forging forward." The applause that followed felt like catharsis. One afternoon, as David sorted boxes for the upcoming move, the doorbell rang. He opened it to see Lauren's father, a man David had met only a few times at holidays. He stood on the porch. shifting awkwardly, hat in hand. "David, mind if we speak?" David blinked. Sure." He led the older man inside. They sat in the living room's sparse arrangement, just a love seat and a coffee table left. Lauren's father cleared his throat. "I heard about all that happened. I don't blame you for divorcing her. He paused, voice trembling. "She messed up big time." David frowned, wary but respectful. "Yes, she did." The older man sighed. "She's staying with me for a bit. She's in a bad place mentally. I'm not excusing her behavior. I just wanted to see if you had any final words or instructions for her. She says she's too ashamed to talk to you." A swirl of conflicting emotions hit David. Part of him felt anger. Another part recognized a father's love trying to salvage his daughter's future. "I don't have instructions. She made her bed. I want her to move on, face consequences, maybe learn something. We're done." Lauren's father swallowed. "I understand. I'm sorry for everything. She told me enough to know it was cruel. If you ever need me to clarify that I never condoned her actions, let me know." David offered a nod, gently escorting the man out. "Thank you for reaching out." The foreign conglomerate pressed for an answer to their multi-million-dollar buyout offer. David spent days deliberating. On one hand, selling would let him walk away from the city of heartbreak, possibly buy a new home in a fresh locale, true freedom. On the other, he felt a genuine passion for the product he built, wanting to expand it personally, not hand it over to corporate suits. He spoke with Lance, who said, "Man, you can't go wrong either way. If you sell, you have tens of millions. If you stay, you keep building your brand, prove you're unstoppable." David rubbed his temples. "I might negotiate partial sale, keep a stake, but let them handle global distribution. That way I'm still involved, but not anchored. Might even relocate to Europe for a while." Lance grinned. "Sounds dope. You deserve some adventure after all this drama." Amid final negotiations, David recalled Lauren's father's visit. Something nudged him. A sense that no matter how furious he was at her, she once was the woman he loved, and she now stood on the brink of ruin. He didn't want to reconcile, never, but a small, humane part of him wondered if he should cut her a tiny break. He consulted Ms. Waverly. "Is it possible to let the lawsuit from my firm drop personal charges against Lauren if she truly had minimal involvement in the code theft? The main culprit was that lover, after all." Ms. Waverly frowned. "We can see, but your board might object." David insisted he'd handle the board, stating, "I don't want her to face indefinite ruin if the main conspirator is behind bars anyway." Waverly shrugged. "Your call. You're the majority shareholder, they'll follow your lead. But after all she did, you're sure?" He exhaled. "Yes, I'm sure. I want closure, not endless vendettas." He arranged a brief meeting with the board, explaining he'd drop personal claims against Lauren, focusing on the man primarily responsible. The board was hesitant but relented, trusting David's moral stance. That same evening, he texted Lauren's father. "I withdrew the personal claim. She won't owe me or my firm beyond what's in the final divorce. She can start fresh." He never received a reply from Lauren's father directly, but a week later, a short email arrived from Lauren. "David, thank you for not pushing further charges on me. I know I don't deserve it. I'll never be able to repay the damage. I hope you find happiness. Lauren." He read it 3 times, tears pricking. He felt no desire to respond. The circle of bitterness closed quietly. With the divorce and legal battles resolved, David finally listed the house. It sold within a month for a decent sum. He used part of that money to put a down payment on a sleek condo in a modern high-rise downtown, a place with no ghosts. The rest, combined with the new partial acquisition deal from the foreign conglomerate, meant David was financially secure for life. He kept a controlling interest in his software, ensuring creative direction. On a warm Sunday afternoon, he stepped into his new condo, glass windows revealing the city skyline. A sense of liberation washed over him. The heartbreak still lingered in the corners of his mind, but the sharp edges dulled. He'd come out battered but unbroken, a victor in the war that was unleashed by Lauren's betrayal. In an empty moment, he scrolled to old wedding photos on his phone. He lingered on an image of them laughing, honeymoon stage. With a steady hand, he selected them all and hit delete. Then he closed the gallery, exhaling. The past is gone. I'm done letting it weigh me down. Chapter 12. 6 months slipped by in a breath. David's condo now felt like home, decorated with modern furniture, potted plants, and personal touches of color. The software expansion soared under partial ownership by the European conglomerate, giving David global reach. He traveled occasionally to pitch in foreign markets, forging new partnerships. Life settled into a balanced rhythm. No more daily nightmares. No looming sabotage. He stood by the full-length window one morning, coffee in hand, overlooking the city's bustle. The reflection in the glass showed a man with a calmer gaze than the tormented soul half a year ago. He had scars from betrayal, but also the clarity of a new beginning. At a tech conference in Berlin, David presented a cutting-edge update to his software. The audience responded enthusiastically, major press outlets praising his unstoppable drive post scandal. After the session, a woman named Ariana, a brilliant cybersecurity expert, approached him, congratulating him on his resilience. They chatted about future collaborations, forging an instant connection, mutual respect for each other's specialties. They ended up grabbing coffee, discovering a shared passion for innovative solutions, a similar sense of humor. For the first time since the heartbreak, David felt a genuine spark. He let himself enjoy the moment, not rushing anything, but quietly acknowledging that maybe he wasn't doomed to solitude. Back home, he continued therapy sessions sporadically, ensuring he processed the trauma thoroughly. He found himself able to speak about Lauren's betrayal without the old knot of rage. The therapist noted how he'd grown from someone fixated on revenge to a more balanced approach. "You got your justice. Now you can focus on living fully." He admitted still feeling pangs, at times, like glimpsing a couple holding hands, reminding him of what he lost. But the difference was, he no longer felt consumed by bitterness. He had reclaimed control of his story. Eventually, the lovers' trial concluded. Despite hiring a pricey lawyer, the avalanche of evidence, David's recordings, Jill's testimony, stolen code made conviction inevitable. The judge handed down a stiff prison sentence for industrial espionage, conspiracy to commit fraud, plus forging documents. He was set to spend several years behind bars. David read the news in a calm acceptance. He got what he deserved. Lauren's involvement remained lesser, with a suspended sentence in the sabotage matter thanks to her partial cooperation. She was free in the literal sense, but weighed down by social disgrace and financial ruin. Word reached David that Lauren had moved to a neighboring state, working a low-level office job. She kept a low profile, avoiding social media. Some rumor said she tried dating again but carried too much scandal baggage. David occasionally wondered if she was safe from the lover's threats, though he was locked away. Perhaps she found fleeting peace or lived with regret. He felt no need to pry further. That chapter ended. He received sporadic letters from her father, basic updates about her attempts to rebuild. David read them with mild detachment, then filed them away. He had no interest in contacting her. One afternoon, out of the blue, an email popped into David's inbox from a reporter who'd covered the sabotage scandal. She wrote, I'm doing a follow-up on how you overcame betrayal and soared in the software world. Care to comment on your personal growth? At first, David wanted to ignore it. But then he realized others might benefit from hearing a story of triumph over heartbreak and sabotage. He responded politely, consenting to a short interview. The piece eventually titled, "Rising from Betrayal: David's Road to Reinvention." In it, he spoke generally about adversity, trusting instincts, and never letting bitterness devour your creativity. He omitted personal details about Lauren, simply stating, "People make choices. I chose to protect my life's work and stand up for myself." The article garnered positive attention, further boosting his brand. During his next European trip to finalize the partial buyout details, David reconnected with Ariana, the cybersecurity expert. They dined at a cozy restaurant in Prague, talking for hours about everything from hacking exploits to personal philosophies on trust. There was a gentle tension, a budding romance neither wanted to rush. After dinner, strolling along a cobblestone street, Ariana asked softly, "Do you mind if I ask about your personal heartbreak? People talk about it in tech circles, the sabotage and the affair." David hesitated, but her warm curiosity felt genuine, not voyeuristic. He opened up, describing the betrayal in broad strokes, how he nearly drowned in rage until he channeled it into a cunning plan. Ariana listened, eyes empathetic. "I'm sorry you went through that," she said softly, slipping her arm through his. "But I admire how you turned it into strength. You didn't let it define you." He smiled, a small, heartfelt expression. "I appreciate that. I'm still learning to trust again, but I feel something new with you." Back home, David told Lance about Ariana. Lance's eyebrows shot up, a grin forming. "Dude, that's awesome. I've never seen you mention a new woman's name with that glimmer in your eye." David laughed, brushing it off. "We'll see where it goes." Peter offered fatherly pride as well. "I'm happy for you. Just stay cautious. Love can heal or hurt depending on who wields it." David nodded, acknowledging the truth. He had no illusions, he'd remain vigilant. But Ariana felt worlds apart from Lauren's manipulative persona. He also updated his mother, who sighed with relief. "I worried you'd never open your heart again. I'm glad you're finding hope." Months drifted by, and David's new condo grew more like a home. Ariana visited occasionally, staying for weekends. Their bond flourished, built on mutual respect. The software expansion soared, employing hundreds, changing the local tech landscape. David found himself invited to philanthropic events, donating to causes encouraging up-and-coming coders from disadvantaged backgrounds. One evening, Ariana discovered an old box labeled Memories in David's closet, random items from his younger years, a few from early marriage days. She asked if he wanted to toss them. David paused. "Some I keep to remind me how far I've come. That heartbreak, it shaped my new determination." Ariana nodded thoughtfully. "I understand." He carefully sorted the box, discarding anything that triggered painful flashbacks. The rest he stored as a quiet reminder of the journey. A year after the entire betrayal saga began, David found himself on the rooftop of his high-rise condo at dawn, coffee in hand, gazing at the awakening skyline. The horizon glowed with vivid pink and orange, a breathtaking sunrise. Ariana stood beside him, resting her head on his shoulder, sipping tea. He felt a warm fullness in his chest, a sense of peace that had eluded him for so long. He remembered the moment he discovered Lauren's affair, the heartbreak that nearly consumed him, the cunning plan that exposed their treachery, the legal battles that freed him from her destructive orbit. Now he stood atop his own achievements, forging a future unburdened by the ghosts of betrayal. He inhaled the fresh morning air, arms circling Ariana's waist. She pressed closer, a soft smile curving her lips. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she murmured, referring to the sunrise. David nodded, voice hushed. "Yeah, it really is." He closed his eyes, letting the warmth envelop him. "Everything that broke me has led me here, stronger, calmer, and open to new love." The bitterness had long since melted into quiet triumph. He was no longer the wounded spouse. He was David, unstoppable, unshackled, and at peace.